part about the whole experience is
Tell
you
me.
get to see a film, you get to meet the producers, the directors, and some of the actors that are there, and they do like a little question, like Q&A. It feels so intimate. It feels so like you're a part of this, even though you never even made
Mhm.
this film.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's one of the things we can really like take advantage of, especially as Canada's a smaller community, but we have so we've really put a lot into our film game. So it's kind of like a good balance between that, where we've got the professionalism, we've got a lot going on, and we have a really great history there, but we're still such a small, intimate community that it creates that feel, and you really get to see the side of creativity and not just the overproduction and then the Hollywood sheen on everything. You actually realize that this film comes from somewhere. It comes from a real maker, a real writer. And yeah, I agree. That's such an interesting experience.
I I always go back to, because I love those avant-garde like noir films, especially like psychological thrillers. Those are my favorites. But I love like the directions even like Quentin Tarantino goes. Even though like he's a legacy director at this point, but honestly like he's an outcast and a weirdo and a freak. And like
You can't hate him for that.
no, he's
Like,
amazing. Like he makes some of these
yeah.
psychological thriller movies that you just sit there and you're on your fucking seat and you just want to.
Because he loves film,
Loves film.
right?
He
Like,
loves film.
loves film, loves story, loves the history of where all of that came from, and he knows what, like, where he belongs in that story. And I mean, it shows, right? It's very different when you see like an auteur compared to just like a filmmaker or just like a screenwriter who's in it for the money, right? Like Tarantino is both, right? But it's because I think, he loves what he does and he loves the history of where he comes from.
I love that about those films where I get it, like so many things are tied with money, like even podcasting, everybody's trying to hit the numbers and the da da da, and like I don't know, there's just something so genuine of just hearing a true story that's coming from a writer, that's coming from a creator, that's coming from the artist directly, not sugar coated, not overpainted,
Filtered.
right, raw, gritty,
Mm-hmm.
dirty,
Mm-hmm.
fucking disgusting.
Well, and I think I mean, I think everyone is responding to that. I think, there's the people that sit up front and say like, "Oh, people want this like beautiful polished look for everything." Whereas the people on the ground are going, "We've had too much of that and it stinks." Right? Like that's kind of I was just reading something today about, that's where we started with Instagram. Instagram started raw, then it went to polished, filtered, and everyone went like, "Ew, this is so unreal. This isn't you're not like an influencer or you're not like a person on the internet like sharing something anymore. You're an influencer and it became a job and it became flashy and everyone wanted to be that." And that's what's going to happen with AI and everything too. We're going to see so many things happening with like communication with bots. We're going to see all of our emails and communication with an AI voice and not a real human behind it. And people are going to reject it. And I think we're going to get even more disgusting. I think it's what happened like with grunge, right? Like, I don't know how old you are, but that's where grunge came from. It was like the 80s is gross. It's too shiny. Had enough of Madonna. Give me a guitar and three chords and let's do this. Like, give me the heart behind something that actually has meaning and I can feel the creativity flowing through it.
And then and then out of that, you get Ramones. You get the
Well, yeah,
Ramones,
I mean,
and I.
well, before that, yeah, they were like where everybody was looking was like, oh, I can make this happen with like three chords and some dumb lyrics and bad haircuts. Yeah.
I saw like even in that like period, I went to see Blondie a few years ago,
Oh,
and
wow.
Debbie Harry, like she's well in her late 70s at this point.
Yeah, and she still rocks,
She's so
man.
and she's twirling on the stage like as if she's
I
Stevie
know.
Nicks. You know,
I know.
I'm just like these people were built out of
But it
fucking cocaine. and meth.
Right.
Like,
But also, she loves what she does, right? She's another one of those people that has loved and respected the punk rock movement, the ska movement, just being in rock and roll in the community and like representing gay rights. And she loves her people. And so she loves what she does. And you feel that. That's the difference, is you feel it.
it feels it feels so much more genuine, okay? Because
Mm.
look, there are plenty of people today in this generation that are doing very similar things that Debbie Harry and among a lot of other people, like even Nine Inch Nails is a great example, we're doing. But there is now a harder way of not being lazy.
Mm.
Back then, if you were lazy, you were just that dumb schmuck in the band, playing at the bar for 29 years.
Not the bass player.
Goddamn bass player.
Bass player
always,
here, just saying.
But they always get lost. But you then that's the new obstacle. That's the new strategy. Is like being able not to be lazy. Because it's very easy to be lazy. I mean, you could just post on TikTok and YouTube. That's great. But then what happens if you get banned? What happens if you lose followers? What happens if your account gets shut down?
What if you wake up one day and you realize you're a schmuck? Like,
yeah, that happens way too often than you think.
Then you're too far along, and then you don't know how to get yourself out of that. You don't know how to be real anymore because all those muscles have atrophied, and you don't know how to be creative. And that's sad. That's probably the saddest thing I can imagine happening.
You lose.
But
you lose. What's the word? You lose. It's not stamina. You lose momentum. You lose momentum.
If you had it
to begin with, which
yes.
not that many people have momentum. It's like, what is momentum?
Well, you mentioned podcasting, right? Like, you're right. Like, there is a side to podcasting that is all of the sheen and the money and the advertising side of things that, I'm going to have a podcast and make millions of dollars. Oh, good luck with that. But I like my little corner of the podcast internet because, I'm a niche podcast, but I get to do what I want. Like, there's kind of the good side and bad side of nobody knowing you're there, right? Like, nobody's telling me what to do, which I like, but it is harder to get your voice heard, but I only want to be heard by the people that are going to really like my content. And I think they're the ones finding me, which is great. So it's kind of the wild, wild west. And I like it, like, I don't need to advertise. I personally don't advertise except for people that are in my actual community. So people that are on Patreon, I will advertise if they have a brand, something spooky that goes with what we're talking about. But all of those other people that pitch me, I'm like, no, I'm not going to talk about your vitamin water and make it seem like I actually use it every day.
No, I totally get that too, because you are the one that's representing your podcast. You're basically representing your little house in the neighborhood. And I'm kind of doing the same thing too.
Yeah.
And I personally have no problem promoting artists, podcasters, writers. Doesn't matter who you are that's coming on the podcast. Like, you want to talk about your podcast? I don't care, please. But the second it gets into the realm where, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm doing. That's all I care about right now. You need to love my product. You can't talk about my product in a negative way. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Nobody asked you. Like, you're asking me to respect you. Like, this needs to work two ways, not one way. It doesn't work one way.
Yeah.
It works two ways. Always.
Well, that's basic business knowledge. I mean, it's not just about, hey, here's my product. It's, does my product actually serve you? Is there something that you're actually looking for? Is this actually going to solve any of your problems? Or, maybe we could just have a conversation about something else instead. I mean, it's really funny. Like, of course, I have a day job. It's not like horror podcasting is paying the bills. So it's like, I can talk to somebody about what I do during the day, which is copywriting. And we talk about strategy and how I can help them. And if they're like, oh, no, we don't need anything right now, I'm like, okay, great. Do you like horror movies? Like, can I give you my other business card? I do that a lot. And people are like, you talk about horror movies? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, and then I have, I've made a friend, if not, if nothing else, at a networking event, so I can't imagine that, if someone's like, well, you don't need me, you don't like my product, I'm not talking to you. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to get very far.
No. And you know what? Like, I think it's important to have that niche, right? Because, you know, you got to love what you love, and you find something that you have a real passion for. And like, again, I also, like, I have a day job. Like, I'm currently in vocational school, but I'm trying to be able to get a day job. You know,
Hmm.
this is my way. This is my outlet. This is my, way of being able to speak out. And it comes in different all shapes and forms and sizes. It doesn't have to it doesn't have to fit any single box. It just is what it is. Somebody tells you, like, well, you need to strategize your podcast. I'm like, but I don't think my podcast needs to be strategized. I think it's fine the way that it is. You know?
Well, I only need to strategize it if I have a very specific goal that you think I have, right? And then, okay. But if I'm here because I want to just use it for self expression and meet people, I think I'm doing just fine.
Being able to make those
Mm-hmm.
connections with people. And again, you know, there
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that you can be able to give insight, especially with your love, especially with films and television, especially in that genre. And not
Mm-hmm.
only that, is like I was saying earlier, there's so many different layers to it as well. When you go into that perspective, you're working with this idea of manipulating with the mind, you know, having something that only one person sees, or how the
Hmm.
shadows manipulate the way that a person's mind, adding that music in there that just bumps up, bumps up just a little. Um, right? Am I wrong here?
No, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, and that's what I was saying. Like the podcasting being unregulated right now, you have so many little weirdos doing their own thing, and it's wonderful. I mean, that's it, and right now, I think as long as you have those people just getting into it, you keep it really raw and you hear actual authentic stories, and hopefully it kind of stays that way. Like we don't get too polished. I don't know. I mean, people have a choice. You can be that strategic podcast and be a top 100, or, you know your place and be happy where you are, just using it for self expression. I think that's important too.
It is. No, and I also, like I was saying also before, and I think, like, when you surround yourself with art, and you yourself are a creative person, being in those social circles are so important, to be able to be out around other artists and be able to talk to other artists. Because,
Yes.
like, no offense to, like, I'm gonna call it like the normies, I just need a little craziness in my life, like that weird question of, like, yo, have you been with anybody lately? No. Have you experienced it? Like, I'm serious. I've had some of the most inappropriate, most insane conversations with artists, and I don't even want to go down those avenues right now. But, like, they're fun.
Ooh.
They're fun. And I look forward to them. I'm like, please ask me the uncomfortable question. For God's sakes, nobody does.
Well, yeah, I think if that's part of being like a creative, we really don't like um the what's it called, like the small talk, or the not going deeper into questions kind of talk. I mean, of course you have to do that to get to know each other. Look at us, we talked about the weather, but then it's like, okay, so like what's real, what's fake? Let's talk about that.
You know what? Like, it's a way of being able to get to know people too. I know that you very much love the genre of horror, but I feel also something that really helps is, like, having those people that also share the love and interest that you do, and be able to have those experiences with them, where you
Oh
may be
yeah.
exposed to something you never experienced before in your life, and you're like, oh my god, this is
Hmm.
this is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, if you pigeonhole yourself, you're just becoming, narrow minded, and you're going to end up being further in that silo, and your algorithm is just going to be against you, right? Like you have to be open to everything. But having a community is key. I mean, with the podcast, that's what I've been trying to build, right? Is people that not just are listening to the topics, but then can engage with them and share what they think about them. Because otherwise, it's just me and a microphone. And that's great for me. But I mean, I love to hear what other people think of the things. Like, I'm genuinely asking, like, am I way off base, guys? Let me know. So hearing what other people think and hearing those different perspectives, it's important. It's a conversation that I want to have, not just me like spewing things
Existence.
onto the airwaves,
Yeah.
right?
Don't we just love doing that? Oh my god.
Hmm.
And especially like there's a lot of like clickbaity material. Where
Oh yeah.
you get people. Okay, this is one of my favorite things. This doesn't only affect the horror or psychological or even films or music or whatever you want to talk about. This idea of over exaggerating situations and scenarios. Okay, I love this. You get those
Mm.
people that literally sit on their ass all freaking day, and then what do? They post a video like, "I guess you've never seen this about this movie." Da! And then, for like a good minute, you're just wasting your life away of watching like this 30-second clip in a movie you watched like 15 years ago. And you're like,
I know.
okay, did I really,
Well, I
did
mean,
I really need to?
there's that side of it, but if like even creators that I really like, it's unfortunate, and I've heard them do little disclaimers a lot and say, "Look, I know my titles are clickbaity, but if they're not, I don't grow. My channel doesn't grow and my message doesn't get to you." So like who's at fault there, right? Like they're playing the game.
I know.
Um I think I like that they acknowledge it. Like even me, like I have to write descriptions for the episodes. I don't really like writing them that way, like with like buzzwords and like I don't know. It just sounds so cheesy. Sometimes they like it when you add emojis, and I'm like, okay, fine, but like I don't know. I really would rather come at it from a more like natural, like conversational kind of way, and not just have to be speaking to the bots that are scraping my words.
What I think was hilarious, right? Recently we had, I think it was Nosferatu that came out recently.
Mm.
And I'm going to be honest with you, like for the past couple of years, like I really haven't found a lot of movies that I found interesting, even bother to watch. Yeah, I haven't even bothered to watch this new movie either. But it's interesting to see how that dynamic has changed. Where you've gotten these campy, cheesy. Do you know how many times I've watched a new movie recently and I'm like, 20 minutes in, okay, it's gonna end like this.
Mm.
I predicted the ending in 20 minutes of watching the movie.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Or I can't watch it. I can't watch it past like the 20-minute mark because I'm just like, this is not going anywhere,
No,
and I don't care what
yeah,
happens.
like what the hell? Like this is the same shit they've been saying since the 30s. Come on, new
Hmm.
story. Get some crackheads in
Well,
the
but
writing
you
room.
know what? The problem is that they also, I mean, there's two sides of it. There's the people that just think, oh, I want to do something new. And that's great. But there's also a story cycle that humans respond to. And if you veer too far out of that cycle that we respond to, like that has the steps of like, the hero's journey, I mean, yeah, that's of course been done since the beginning of time, but it's also what we respond to. So you veer too far out of that to be artsy and new, it just becomes drivel. And I think a lot of, especially like new filmmakers, they don't realize that. Or if people think, oh, yeah, this is totally new, but nobody's going to have a human response to it. So, and then there's the other side, of course, which is like delving too much into that and taking the hero cycle literally and making superhero movies until they're dead. And, we're just like, okay, we get it. You have lots of money and these are great effects, but like, I'm just so over what's happening to Thor. I don't care anymore.
I mean, Jesus Christ! Like, are they gonna make a Marvel? Like, we have Nintendo World. Can we get Marvel World? So you could make more movies. Because if they're gonna make more movies, they're
Mm.
gonna need to like add more rides. Because Star Wars is already just a theme park at this point. It's not even a movie saga or anything. It's just making theme parks. So we might as well just shift
Mm-hmm.
the direction of Marvel. Maybe we can make Marvel stores and see if we can make more money there. I, it, it, the issue that comes into right. I think the both of us can agree we like good storytelling. I like a good story. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be 100% real. It doesn't have to make 100% sense.
Nope. Nope.
It just has to be something enjoyable. You can either watch it with a partner or you can watch it with a friend. You could just put it on randomly and just be able to just get into the motion. We're missing a lot of that. And it's not just
Mm-hmm.
podcasters that are saying this, and it's not just movie lovers, and it's not just people that are in the industry. It's becoming a lost art. You know? It's hard to make stuff like this. Like, I'm talking out of my ass right now, but it's hard to make this stuff.
Well, I mean, part of it is that like the polish isn't the real story, right? And that's what we're craving because it's been just glossed over and flattened, and we're just like, where's the real story? Because you can't fake that. You just can't. It's like that's how I feel about superhero movies. They're just so glossy and so just like boom, pow, look at this shiny thing and like effects, and I'm just like, I don't really know what's happening here. Like I've lost the plot, guys, like literally. And, I'm going back to physical comic books. Thank you very much because you ruined this. It was really exciting at the beginning when those superhero movies were happening, like Spider-Man 1, that was great. But I think we took it too far.
Well, I think the pinnacle was, in the 90s, I grew up in the early 2000s, but in the 90s they had graphic novels, which kind of stemmed into my childhood as well.
Mm.
And the cool thing about those graphic novels, you got series like Deadpool that came out of those graphic novels. And it was a nice change for a lot of people because for the first time in a long time, there was no hero. He was an anti-hero.
Mm. Anti-hero,
And
yeah.
in the 90s, like people don't understand, like, I think his name is Ryan. I think Ryan Reynolds that portrays Deadpool. Like he does a
Mm-hmm.
great job and is like extremely inappropriate and kind of on key. But the Deadpool in the 90s was way worse. Like way,
Mm.
way, way worse. Just the graphic images that are in these graphic novels. Like, holy shit. But that's what people were wanting. They wanted that like you were saying earlier, like that grunge, that the proto punk, the metal,
Mm-hmm.
that dirty, grimy, and it worked. I mean, hey, we got Deadpool
And
movies.
I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so I remember like it was a sexy time.
Was
Like sex was
everywhere.
everywhere. And so if you didn't really lean hard into like the sexy storyline, the scantily clad women, the misogynist jokes, that's just what it was. That was what real was, right? So that's where it came from. And I mean, a lot of people are holding Deadpool accountable now, which is just like, no, it was a product of the times. Like we have moved on. It's a little bit shinier. We're just now questioning whether we got too shiny.
You know what though? I think if I can think of one superhero movie that has come out in the 21st century, hands down, Deadpool is one of my favorites. For the sheer fact that
Mm.
it didn't follow any of the social norms. It was inappropriate, disgusting from start to finish. And it left a mark. Like, if I can think of any superhero movie, that one is the most memorable out of all of them.
I'm trying to think of mine. Obviously, none of them are very memorable to me.
Uh,
I
X Men.
hmm. I mean, the first
Mm-hmm.
one,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Excellent.
yeah, that's memorable.
Excellent.
Because that was the first one that where we saw, oh, they're gonna do something with this that's actually bringing the characters off the page to life. Not, it wasn't like far off. It was actually what we imagined in our minds what Wolverine would be, what Mystique would be. Like that was a pivotal moment. But like I said, we've got too far. I mean, but I'm always like a Batman fan, but 80s Batman really like turned everything around for me too, right? Like even the Batman that people hate, Batman Returns is still wonderful. It's so campy and weird and everyone hates it, but I love it.
You know what though? I think that Tim Burton did Batman.
Or Batman Forever. Sorry, I meant Batman
Was it
Forever.
Batman Forever?
Batman Forever is the campy one with Poison Ivy. Batman Returns is my favorite, which is Catwoman and Penguin.
Let's see. I'm trying to.
The
I'm
Christmas
trying to
movie.
remember which one was made by Tim Burton.
The first two.
Right, yeah, the one that came out in '89. Right, because Batman
Yeah,
Forever is the
yeah.
one with Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the campy weird one that everyone hates, but I still like that one too.
You know what? You know what though is it's very much it's a cartoon. That's brought to
Yeah.
live action. And people forget, by the way, that the original Batman series that came out in the 1960s with Adam West was very campy. The whole
Oh, it
show
was
was so
so,
campy,
so,
but I
yeah.
loved it. I mean, I definitely loved the
I
original
loved it too.
Joker. Was that psychotic laugh?
Cesar Romero. Yep.
That laugh
Mm-hmm.
was that was a psycho laugh. Like, I don't know any kids around in the 60s. You listen to that man and it was like 11 o'clock at night and just hear his laugh. I don't think you'd be wet in your bed. Be wet in your bed, man. But you know what though? I think that is something that's really incredible, right? We're talking about a story that's already been told. You know, Batman,
Yeah.
Dick Tracy back in the 30s and 40s.
Oh.
But then you have these creators, these storytellers, these artists that come along and they take these stories and they pour their whole mind into it. And then, like we were talking about, like even like Batman Forever, people forget about even the Tim Burton one that came out in '89 was not. But a lot of people love it today. It's awesome. I mean, it's got Danny DeVito. All right, it's got Danny DeVito as the Penguin.
But that's the second one. That's Batman Returns. The first one was the Joker with Jack Nicholson.
So he's in Batman Forever.
No, Batman Returns. There's Batman, which was the first one. That was with Jack Nicholson.
Oh my god,
and,
I'm losing my control over here.
Kim Basinger. And then the second one was Michelle Pfeiffer, Danny DeVito, and Paul Rubens.
Right.
And,
right. Because Batman Returns was 92.
Oh god, who's the bad guy?
Batman Forever was.
Who's the bad guy?
In which one?
The guy that always everyone has an impression of him. Oh god, why am I blanking?
You're talking about the
Mr. Bad Guy himself. I am losing
Christopher Walken.
Hold on. Thank you,
Christopher Walken. That man's hilarious. I was watching a clip with him the other day. Because he's very much a stereotype. Because the way he talks and he moves.
Right.
And there's this guy that was just being really polite. It just walked up to Christopher Walken and said, "Hey, I'm a really big fan. I don't mean to bother you. Can I get an autograph?" And he looks at him. He does with his hands. He's like, "What is this autograph? What is this autograph business?" Classic Christopher Walken. And I was just like, that man got better than an autograph. Yeah. Hands down.
Because you can tell also, like, he loves what he does. That means that includes meeting the people that also appreciate your work, right? Like, that comes through.
I feel like even somebody like Danny DeVito, if you ran into him, I guarantee you he's probably like the sweetest person you'll ever meet. Because...
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're just people.
They're just people. And the reason is as an artist, and I think we can see eye to eye with this, when you see an artist like that, which obviously... he's not the most attractive guy. He's pretty small. He's got, like, a lot of limitations, but he's used that to his advantage throughout his career. He has shined through so well as a freaking actor that, like, he still keeps on going. The man's in his freaking 70s. That's a true artist.
Yeah, I mean, and that's character, right? Like, because it's not always the best looking and the shiniest, the most polished person that's really... Nobody wants to see that. People need character, like, in your personality, in your face. I mean, if you really look at actors more, like, closely, sure, there's your Brad Pitts and, George Clooney's. Okay. But then, there's also, like... Julia Roberts, and she's beautiful, but she also has character to her face. She's not really like classically like model beautiful. Reese Witherspoon, like she's a little bit odd looking, but she's pretty. But it's because there's character in her face, and that's something that if people know how to work it, that's what will get you there. It's not just always the prettiest, the model looking person that's really going to capture your attention, because partly it's because they don't look like real people.
It's being able to portray yourself as who you are. I think that what it comes down to, it's not just acting. It's not just about being somebody that is creative. It's understanding that you have that ground. You have that foundation where you can honestly say to yourself, I know who I am. I'm not hiding who I am. And come on, let's be honest. The
Mm-hmm.
amount of people that we see, even in this sector, in regards to like podcasting or even in the writing sector, or how many of them are fake in the sense they're
Oh my God.
constantly putting on an act. Why? Just be yourself. You like really hate yourself that much? Like, what's wrong with being yourself, representing who you are? Like, it's baffling.
Well, it takes some people a long time to get there. I mean, there is a standard that we have in society. It is there. It's not non-existent, and just some people are better with navigating it than others. I mean, some people are just able to say fuck it. Some people really want to fit in, which is our natural tendency to want to fit in and be accepted, right? So until you realize that's actually not possible, you know, that's the secret. That's like the Santa Claus that we didn't tell you. It's like really not possible to let everybody like you or fit in unless you really have compassion for yourself, right? Until you get there. And some people it takes a longer time. So,
I
yeah.
didn't want to go down this avenue, but I think I should because I feel like you're the right person to talk to about this.
Ooh.
Serial killers. uh,
Are they being authentic? Is that what you're going to ask me?
no, no, no. But I think it's really interesting because I think when you look at them, they seem like the type of people that are yearning for so much love and attention, but they do it in
Hmm.
such a emotionalist, cold, and dark and sadistic way of literally taking another person's life for some type of grand plan, some type of mission. And it's interesting to like look at that psychologically and how you can have a person that has the same brain as you, but it's rewired completely different than the way that your brain functions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To a detriment, into a very negative space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I true crime is like a whole thing. I don't know if I'm like the true crime
No, but I
person to
just
like comment on
but
it.
like I just feel like this is one of the things that a lot of, especially in films, they get wrong with
Yeah.
serial killers is like I get it, they're horrific and horrible people. 100% agree with you. But still adding a little bit of humanity in there. Maybe kind of giving us an understanding of
Yeah.
why they are
The psychology.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like as long as people have been studying serial killers, we still don't really get it. that's that's the mystery, right? Like how can you are you human? Because and that's the question that comes up for me. We have, talks about if there's like a horror movie that features just a killer, right? This isn't a Freddy or a Jason or a
Or the
vampire. This is
ring
a
or
human.
human
Yeah,
centipede.
like this is
Yeah.
a well, that's a human.
Oh yeah,
So if
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, you're right, you're right, you're right. Sorry.
the question is like is that a monster? Like when do we start calling that person a monster? When do we start calling or seeing that person as monstrous aside from being human? Right? Like I find that question really interesting because like you're right. What is the difference? What happened to you and your brain that makes you human like me but not really human like me? Like,
It's
I got to think about my own
no,
question.
no, 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 no. What I'm thinking about is this: we're when we think of people, because obviously we're in communities, we're in neighborhoods.
Mm,
You know, you only know people from the surface level. Like, let's be honest with
yeah.
ourselves. Like, even the people that you're the closest with, how much time are you actually spending with them? You know, you're interacting with them, but you're not totally in their life all the time.
Well, I mean, the number one killer of women is their husbands.
Yeah.
And like all those serial killers, people said, oh my God, he was such a nice guy. He's just a friendly guy in my neighborhood. Meanwhile, he's, one of the famous serial killers in Canada is Paul Bernardo. And that's what everyone said about him. He was just like a clean cut, nice guy. And he abducted and did terrible things to several women. You don't know.
Don't know. But it doesn't give you like I don't feel like it should be used as a fuel of paranoia where you should be terrified of every single person you interact with. What I'm trying to get at is that even for myself, like in my cushion of what I call trauma. It's just being able to understand, like being able to have boundaries,
Mm.
understanding your limitations, and know when to be alert. Like to be able to pick up on, and I hate to say this as somebody like I've been in really fucked up situations. Like there are things you could pick up early on. You're like, okay, let's go.
This is why we watch horror movies.
I
This
knew
is
you were
why
gonna
we
say
watch
that. I
them.
knew it.
Because they teach you to look for the signs. They make you they can make you a little paranoid of everything,
Yeah.
but I think it's like maybe also a healthy paranoia because you've already played out what the story is going to be like, and it does make you a little bit. I think it makes you less scared because we've already seen it. We've seen it realized, and through catharsis, we've experienced it, and so we know what to watch for. We watch for those creepy signs and red flags, but I think it makes us stronger and smarter.
I always, because I was raised in a Jewish home, and
Mm.
our idea of the devil is very different
Oh
than
yes.
the Christian interpretation. So in Judaism, like they have this idea of the devil being basically three entities within one, which is like the voice inside of your head, the angel of death, and the other one is there really is no good English translation, but the closest thing to it would be like a gatekeeper.
Hmm.
So kind of interesting. It's almost like the you're in that scary little house, and then you got that creepy guy on the couch, and then he asks you the question. If you pass the test, you walk out alive. If
Oh
he's
boy.
saying, if you don't pass the test, your soul is mine. And I was raised with this idea of where this was real. Like very much ingrained where like this is a real thing, this is part of the world. And obviously, as you get older, you start to have a little bit more of clarity and understanding of what could be real and what could not be. Okay, look, there's this second dimension. All right, I understand there's different dimensions. But a lot of this lore and a lot of this mythology and a lot of these things come from people being in those scenarios thousands of years ago, maybe hundreds of years ago, where it's either traumatizing or really violent and horrible. And thus these stories were born. The
Hmm.
devil.
One of the stories from Judaism I really like is a demon that's the demon of distraction. I've done a lot of research on this for a book I was writing, and I wanted to have like a Jewish protagonist and really look into what is distraction, right? Like that perspective of seeing it as a demonic interference, right? I mean, think about how that applies to what we're dealing with today, right? Like distraction of our phones, distraction of the media, and all of that stuff, right? So you're right. I mean, it's not like they had those things back when the Torah was written, but the distraction was always a demon, so to speak, right?
And it's interesting because in Judaism, demons come from Adam. Because there is in like, kind of the hidden text where it talks about Adam basically cheated on Eva with his quote unquote first wife. So there were two. There was Ava
Lilith.
1 and Ava 2. And out of that incest came demons. And again, like that same idea of where what it's trying to tell you is not that sleeping with another person is bad, but explaining what comes out of it. You're not only hurting the other person, but you're hurting yourself in the process.
Mm.
You know, when you
Mm-hmm.
love someone, when you care about somebody, it's coming back to you. Why do you think you feel pain when something happens? Because,
Or you feel pain when you read this, right? So you
right.
should feel like if you're reading this on the outside, think of what it would feel like if you're on the
Inside.
inside of that
Hmm.
story. But story is key. It's a
Story.
story to make to have those feelings, right? Like, you know, the literal readings is where we get into trouble.
I mean, it's crazy because these things have been written for thousands of years. I mean, when you go across the oceans to Asia and you look at the lore and mythology that comes out of places like the Philippines, Korea, China, Japan, you know, these date back
Yes.
thousands of years. And a lot of it sounds insane, especially like the spooky old lady floating up in the sky, or the spirit dragon. Or, by the way, one of my favorites, which was actually made by Studio Ghibli, is Totoro. Totoro are these
Oh.
little fluffy trolls that is in Japanese lore. Yes, fluffy trolls, okay? That they're basically
Mm-hmm.
guardians. They're there to protect the land and the people that connect with the earth. And I'm just like, again, the ideas that people have come up with.
Yeah.
It's
Do you
amazing.
know? Do you know what Ampan Man is from Japan?
I'm gonna have to.
Have you ever heard of Ampan Man, the
I'm
cartoon?
gonna Google this. I'm gonna.
Okay, so I can explain it though because it's really fun. So Ampan Man is this little superhero, and he's made of bread, and all of his friends are like pieces
Yeah,
of bread and toast.
I've seen this. Okay. Yeah.
Like, and if I'm remembering correctly, like he can take off pieces of his body and like feed it to people to make them better. Like if that is not Christianity, I don't know what is. And yet Japan is not a Christian nation. I mean, I'm sure there are Christians there, yes, but I mean, it's basically Buddhist and atheist.
Yeah, I mean, Christianity's more prominent in like places like Korea, like the Seventh Day
Mm-hmm.
Adventist Church. You're right. Like
Yeah.
Japanese is a little bit different with their culture.
But the fact that they play with that, like, and that's why, like, Japanese culture is so imaginative and rich with all of those ideas and so much more, I don't know, innovative, I think.
Especially those drama and dynamic stories, like especially when we're talking about superheroes. We're in
Yeah.
I love this about manga coming out of Japan. They have their
Mm-hmm.
heroes are actually pretty evil and bad. They're
Yeah. A lot
a
of the
lot of the
time.
times like
Yeah.
they're terrible to their family, they're terrible to their partners, they're terrible to their friends, and you just want to keep turning page after page after page, even though they're horrible.
How much more disgusting is this
Right?
person going to
You
be?
just want to dig into there. But that is a testament to their culture. These are artists that
Mm-hmm.
know what works, and this is the thing about Japanese thinking. It's you engineer well, you think thoroughly, and you process efficiently. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way that artists process, and that's the end of the story. Like you want to make gritty and dirty, boom, there's a place. Done. End of story. We
And you can explore morality without exploring religion because that seems to be what saturates like Western culture no matter what, right? Because a lot of people will say things like you and I, it's like, well, I was raised as this religion. So, I mean, of course that comes out in our work, but if you're from Japan and you're used to a culture where, there's no Christianity and, the religion doesn't really interfere with your government or, the school teachings, right? That's a very different way to view the world and to create from.
The wildest part is, we have this idea in this country, which is separation of church and state.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm. You have an
we
idea.
have
I don't know if
we have an idea.
it's in
Yeah.
practice.
And I don't like to get like too political, but like there was an incident a little while ago where they were trying to pass to have where the Ten Commandments were
Oh, or in
in
school.
school in Texas.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
say,
And Oklahoma, it's there.
which by the way, Oklahoma is a native and indigenous state, so which is like,
That's even
yeah.
sadder.
But it's just it's baffling. It's like, hello, okay, there needs to be separation of church and state, and going on and on about why it's important to have it. And it's like, first off, in that classroom, you can have Muslim, you can have Sikh, you could have Punjabi,
Yeah.
you could have Jewish kids. Like, not everybody in that classroom has that ideology. Like the classroom should just be a place where kids are taught skills and be able to eventually have some type of trade or an idea of what they want to do in the future. It's just ridiculous that we've literally watered down our media, our entertainment in this country where I talk to filmmakers, musicians, and artists from the underground scene. Guess who's making more money than Hollywood? They are. They are.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's going to run true, like, going forward. I hope. Anyway, like, I really
we are
hope.
the future. We
Yeah.
are the future. Like,
I mean, that's the same question with all the books that they're banning and the art that they ban before they end up banning the Bible for the exact same content. But it's not really about banning books. It's not about banning art. It's about suppressing voice, right? It's about having a cause to, put Christianity in the spotlight. So it's, I don't know, it runs deep in America. It really does. I mean, Canada's not immune to it. We do have some book banning here, but it's not the same because we don't have that strong Christian nationalism vibe, for
But
lack of a better
but the,
word.
the the thing that Americans don't understand is in Canada, and correct me if I'm wrong, you get a lot
Mm.
of English, particularly from British and French culture that gets mixed in, depending on where you are in the country.
Mm.
Because you have places like Quebec, and then you got places like Alberta or Saskatchewan, which are totally completely different places. Have
Oh yeah, it's like Texas and New
right,
York. It's like,
and
yeah.
the people that are living there, the conditions that they're living under, the environments that they're under are completely. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something where this plays in, where you cannot put everybody into a box. I'm not saying you got to slap labels on everything. All I'm saying is just having a little bit of open mindedness and understanding that no two people in a country are living the same lives. We got to stop getting out of
Mm-hmm.
this crap of we got to put this, we got to ban this. Why don't we talk about what we can do? What we can
Yeah.
benefit? What, especially in Canada right now, what we can do for the native and indigenous tribes that are there, because let's be honest, all right? They're the ones that are suffering just like a lot of the blue collar and truck drivers and many of the working class. It's like, hello,
Mm-hmm.
let's start working on what is actually benefiting us, not the things that are not benefiting us.
And let's try, I mean, if it's at all possible. I mean, I think we've done a lot of work in the past few years of like reclaiming some history and understanding and lost knowledge. Of course, sadly, a lot of that is lost, and that's our fault, and like Canada is pretty good at owning up to it. There's still work to be done, of course, but like that lost knowledge is something that really hits, because when we are all of us on this stolen land and we are lost and looking for answers, and how do we make sure that we're not killing the planet, how do we make sure that we're more independent, unfortunately, from the US, because we can't be as dependent as we once were for food and resources. Well, if we look to that native knowledge that's been here all along, like that's how we save ourselves. And those are the people we're going to have to you know go to with our tails between our legs and say like, oh, we need to learn how to live off the land. Sorry we took away all of that stuff from you, but what you got left, because we're going to need that.
No, it's interesting because like there are, even in like the agriculture sector, you're having farmers where they're moving to having farms where they're not doing the same practices that mass producers are trying to do, and
Yes, I'm loving that.
it's
And wineries too. I just heard a really cool winery where it's called like wildflower wine or something like
is that
that,
the
where instead
one?
of like using pesticides, they're planting wildflowers to attract pollinators and stuff like that. So again, just all those different practices that are natural.
I'm trying to remember. There was
They're in Niagara, so they're here in Ontario, but I can't remember what they're called. Wildflower wine
something
or
like that.
something like that. Something like
There
that.
was another place, because you mentioned that reminded me of there. I almost positive they're in Canada too. They basically built like a hydroponic garden where they were been growing.
Hmm. Sounds like us.
My God, my brain. Anyway, when it comes to me, I'll like it'll pop there. But the really interesting thing about all of this is it's like not only being able to cultivate, right, but it's also being able
Hmm.
to see and how we're able to benefit our own environment. Great example of this,
Yeah.
okay, is I live here in South Florida. I'm gonna be moving, thank the Lord, in a couple of months. But
Out of state or
no,
just
I'm
different
moving to
city?
Colorado at the end of the year.
Oh my, that's humongous.
I
That's a huge
yeah, I
move.
need I need some freedom. I need a little
Ooh.
I need a little breather. But the interesting part about
Doesn't that make Lauren Boebert your person? Isn't she Colorado?
I believe so. One of the reasons why
That's gonna be so fun. That's some fun drama because she's a trip.
one of the reasons why I wanted to go out to Colorado.
I watch United States politics like it's Young and the Restless. Okay, we sit up here and we're just like, oh, that's the tea. Look at freaking Gavin Newsom now. Like it's
It is
hilarious.
hilarious. No, like the thing that I really love about Colorado in itself, and look, like a lot of places, even in Canada, even the United States, like every place has its pros and cons.
Oh, of
I'm a
course.
libertarian, like not politically, just mindset and thinking wise, and I love this idea of where you leave me alone, I leave, like we leave each other alone. Like let me live my life, you live your life, kind of thing. And
Oh, you don't get that in Florida?
everybody isn't everybody.
Sorry.
No, and it's not. You know what? It just has to do with environment and attitude, and it doesn't mean that any place is wrong
Yeah.
or bad. It just means that the same way that certain artists can collaborate across the globe, right? From Europe to Canada, or the United States to Asia. It's just being able to get over those cultural differences. Not every place is made for
Mm.
everybody, you know. And I feel that especially even for yourself, right? When you're able to find your community, find what you love, find what you're able to create, and get that out there, that's all that matters, And if the place is not fitting, then move, and you'll.
I mean, that's a brave move. That is just like literally across the country as far as you could go. That's amazing. Well, good choice. I mean,
I'm
that's beautiful, but holy different environment, Batman. Like you're going from like what I'm guessing like swampy humidity, gators and snakes to like mountains and cold air and real winter. Oh
I'm
my.
originally from New York, so like
Ah,
I grew up
okay.
like I grew up in Rockland County. Like the name of the county I
Okay.
grew up is called Rockland, because the whole
So there's
no,
rocks
it's
there?
literally on no, it's literally on a mountain. So we're
Okay.
above sea level, and where I
Mm,
grew up, like a lot of the areas, like you have this also in Toronto. I know this in certain areas where it's very hilly. So you're
yeah.
driving,
It's a escarpment.
right. So you're going up hills and
Hmm.
then going down hills, and you're going around curves, and then you're doing all the bends and stuff. So here's something I didn't realize, and I had somebody to explain this to me. Where wherever you grow up, your body adjusts to that environment. So
Oh,
even though
yeah.
I've lived,
Especially elevation.
even though I've lived in a bunch of
Yeah.
different places,
Have you ever had elevation sickness?
yeah, I think I'm actually,
Oh, it's the
I think
worst.
I actually like health wise, I'm doing pretty mad down here. And I think it's because like I think I need to be in that environment.
I think you're too low. You might be too low. Like Florida must be
It
low,
is.
right? And then,
I need higher
yeah.
elevation.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I lived in Mexico for a while in the mountains, and
Fun.
it only took like about a weekend or a week or so, but what a strange feeling. I was like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. Like it's not that much above sea level. It was like 2000 or something, but like, what a weird feeling. You just feel odd and out of it, and like just from elevation. So, good luck with that. And culture is going to be different. My God.
You know what though? Like
What a fun adventure.
it is. You know what? I've spoken to people all over the place, and I will say this: the one place that has really opened my eyes, because like I grew up in kind of like a culty Jewish community, and I left
Mm.
around 2017, which believe it or not actually was the year I went to the Toronto Film Festival. I got like exposed to the underground, like indie. So like kind of me leaving, I'm like,
Do they have like a Rumspringa? Like, that's what it sounds
so
like.
I'm going through like this whole thing, and then I moved overseas, and then I meet a bunch of people that are from like Boulder and Denver, Colorado, and they
Oh.
exposed me to like weed and like the Big Lebowski and like libertarian.
And you were like, screw that. I'm going to Florida.
Like, yeah, and I'm like literally 7 years later, I'm down here instead of there. But I think that the universe works in that way, right? Just the way that how like stories start to play. Like, why don't you just get out of that house? You know, you had
Hmm.
15 chances to get out of that house. I've been sitting here for two.
Those ghosts have been telling you to
Get
get out of that
out.
house. You were
You have
not
not
listening.
listened. So when the universe gives you these people, or gives you signs, or just something comes up,
Opportunities.
We don't
Yeah.
listen. We're just a bunch of dumb shitheads that just sit there like,
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while. It's true. But, as long as you're open, if you're always open to possibilities.
I will tell you though that is one thing that pisses me off sometimes with some films is that stupid thing of them literally like, yo, you could have left like 10 minutes ago. Like, why
Oh,
are you going down the
yeah.
basement? Why are you stop going down the basement? Like, are you dumb? What the hell?
But then it wouldn't be a story. Maybe we're onto something there that it's true. Like we are dumb. Like maybe from the outside it looks so easy to make that choice, but when you're in it, you have your blinders on. You don't see that that's not a good choice. Don't go in the locked basement in the Airbnb that you're not supposed to touch.
I literally last night I was watching Uncharted. One of the I don't even know what the movie is about. Like I watched like maybe a portion of it, and like in this scene, they were picking up these old ships that were full of money, and they're like flying them with helicopters. Very unrealistic, but
Hmm.
they're like trying to rob this helicopter with this boat hanging under it. And they think the genius idea is to go up on the ropes while there's another helicopter and this elite team that's got tons of monies and boats just waiting to pick up these things. To go up and hijack the helicopter and then steer the helicopter in a completely different direction. Like the other helicopter and the other team and this rich group is not going to figure out what the hell you're doing. So they literally just destroy the ships and then they just sink into the ocean. And I'm just like, what?
With all the money?
Yeah, I'm like, you could have just waited in the ship until they like docked the ship somewhere and then just killed.
What kind of story is that?
Right?
Okay.
Ugh, I hate stuff like that because then I start being like, can I call up the director? Can I talk to the writer? Because I have questions. Like I know the Frito Lay's bag has a number
I
I
have
can call.
questions.
I want that number.
Well, we've come full circle. Like that's the problem with like Hollywood filmmaking, right? You don't get that connection you do when you're talking to indie filmmakers where they're going to do those Q&As at film festivals and you actually feel like part of the process or you get to pick their brain. Like that's a really big deal. Like you're right. It is like a product, right? We go to the movies or we support that film. I should be able to call a 1-800 number and be like, "What did she go into the basement when they told her not to? What was the point of that? Why did you put me through that?"
Why did you put me? I wetted my pants, okay? I didn't have a change. All right? I didn't have a pair to change it to.
That's hilarious.
But you know what? Honestly, like, I get it, especially when you start getting larger. It's sometimes harder to be able to get into those rooms and in those conversations with those
Mm.
people. But again, I think that's kind of the ambiance and magic of what kind of allows the indie and underground world to kind of flourish is because we're so diverse. There's so many different communities. Like we're talking, like there's in Toronto, there's in Colorado, there's in South Florida. They're all over the place. And you get to have these people then maybe connect with a team in Belgium in their own small community, something like that. And I think that even though it's small, that's something to look forward to. Yeah, it's not going to be
Hmm.
$500 million, but at least,
It's a different
yeah,
experience,
completely
right?
different
Like
experience.
sometimes you do want flashy and shiny. Sometimes I do want to watch the new Star Wars to see what's up and know what's happening in that universe. But, then I also want to watch, like, I don't know, some weird indie film on Mubi and go, this is so weird. Who thought of this? It's amazing.
There's some of them that are kind of wild. Like they're,
Yeah.
I talked about this before. There was one that came out with Demi Moore, which is Substance.
The Substance. Yeah.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
For those of you who are just listening and not seeing this on video, Dave is making a face. Like, what the hell?
That because, like, to be honest, we haven't had, like I was saying earlier, we had Nosferatu that came out recently. We haven't had films like this in years. I mean,
Yeah.
year. I think maybe the
Well, horror is also having a moment. It's a horror movie, and horror is having a little bit more of a renaissance with like, I think we need to up our game a little bit. And they really have like everything from A24, like Hereditary and Midsommar, like from Ari Aster. Like those are more artsy, more thought driven, a little bit more slow paced. You have to be able to endure the like, okay, there's like some funky making at the beginning for like the first hour and a half, and then the last 15 minutes it's going to blow your mind. So as long as you're in it for that, like some of the stuff out there is it's wild.
and I really love the fact that, there is this comeback to using digital effects and then still also using practical effects at the same time.
Oh yeah, I hope that continues. I hope that the real OGs like that are, raised in the 80s, 90s know that that was the best part of horror. So yes, we have to use what's, available to us. We have to use good new tech, but I think it's a balance of, don't forget also that we liked practical effects and they did a good job. And too much CGI, we don't like it. People don't respond to it.
No, and to be honest, that was kind of one of the things that I didn't like about Smile was the fact that there
Mm,
was, me personally, there was so much CGI in that movie from the very beginning that it
mm,
started. It just it leaves a bad taste in your mouth in the sense where there is something about particularly that genre where when it has practical effects, even in cases where it's not even realistic, like on the opposite spectrum, like even Scream, it's not that
yeah.
realistic. But it doesn't, that's the idea of it. It's supposed to be able to give that impracticality, kind of feel a little bit more
Well, yeah, if you
homemade.
do a good job at suspending disbelief for people, then we're in. We're like, yeah, we know it's a guy in a suit, but like, okay, like we're in it for the story. Like speaking of some of those older movies where the effects were just like
Garbage.
basic junk.
Freddy
I mean,
Krueger,
they were like
Nightmare of Elm Street.
I'm thinking even older than that. Like I'm thinking of the Wasp Woman. It's like a 60s movie, and this is like a Party City outfit she's wearing. She doesn't even look like a wasp.
No,
She looks just
a
like
bumblebee that's been like repainted and retaped.
run
Yeah,
over. Yeah, I don't know. It's total Party City, but the story is good. I get it. She's a wasp woman because she like had this experiment at her like beauty company, and the story is good. So it doesn't matter, right? And it's now classic. So you can't I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the answer. I hope like you do that like especially horror makers and indie makers realize you can do a lot with just story as long as you're good at like conveying what you want to say, suspend disbelief. People will go along with you for the ride, even if you got like a guy in a suit.
I was talking about this before, but this just constantly comes back to my mind is, you know, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Mm,
First off, like that movie had a really small ass budget, and I
mm,
mean was made probably in the worst time to make a movie like that.
mm.
Like
About a trans
a
alien?
trans
Yeah.
alien from transsexual Transylvania. you know, and the bizarre part of the movie was it was designed. No, literally, the movie was designed to be made in front of an audience because what's his name? Richard O'Brien, as genius as he was a playwright, not a film writer. He was a playwright. So he literally took his play and just moved it over to film
And
and
shot
shot
it.
it.
Yeah.
So that's why Rocky Horror Picture Show is the way that it is. And I've watched it by myself. I don't recommend it. It's not the greatest experience. It's kind of
No. You have to have somebody beside you to say, did that? I don't remember this part. Was that always in here? Because that was really weird. Why is that happening?
yeah, especially
At least that's my experience. Like here, we had like I know you guys have MTV or you had MTV. I don't know if MTV still
so.
exists, but in Canada we had Much Music, so it was like a Canadian counterpart, and Much Music would play Rocky Horror Picture Show every Halloween. So my memory of it is we would go trick or treating. I trick or treated until I was 18. So we would go trick or treating, and then we would always come back to my house, sort our candy, trade the things that we don't like, and watch Rocky Horror because it was always on. And it was always every year. And we'd be like, I don't remember this part. What is this? What's happening? Like it took many years before we're like, so wait, he's an alien? So what's Riff Raff's deal? Like it took a long time to piece together everything too, because it's a weird movie, but it's so wonderful. But yeah, I wouldn't say watch it alone. I would be very lost.
There are. It's interesting because there's a lot of films that are like this, and I think something also, especially for yourself, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you do podcasting and you like to do, a deeper dive and do that analysis and kind of take it a step forward.
Mm-hmm.
These stories, they're not just a story, like following the yellow brick road. The
Mm.
entire production, everything that's going on, there was somebody that was making that piece. What I mean by that is when you deal with these productions, especially a lot of these cult classic films, they're leading their own little hints. So, the person responsible for the background or something, put their own little thing in there. You know, one of
Mm.
the outside I don't know why I can't think right now. The non-speaking people that are on the in the film. Sometimes you get those production designer,
The
the
extras?
extras. Thank you. You'll get the people that do the
Hmm.
costume designs and stuff, and they'll throw in their own little things in there. Because keep in mind, like, they're just going through a riff. They're just going through the motion.
Well, and they're creators too, right? They're creators with a brief, basically. So the director's trusting them to also give them a direction and, okay, run with this. I hired you based on
Just
your
do it.
skills. Now
Just do
you
it.
take
Just
it,
do it.
you know? And then yeah, I get final say, but
Yeah.
that's why you have those people. They're there to bring their genius to it as well.
I think that's what really taps into those films is
Mm-hmm.
that ability, that way of having not only it just being one story, but story being told by multiple people. That's why you can keep on
Yeah.
watching it over and over again. And you're like, huh. I never.
And sometimes you have to because you don't get it on the first try.
So, one thing, talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show, I've never noticed this too, but the extras, the ones that are on the top, when he's going to the Rocky, when to reveal Rocky, they're all wearing different geometric patterns.
Oh boy.
So if you look at their outfits, they're all
Another Easter
yeah,
egg.
they're representing different
Okay.
shapes. So that's what I'm saying. That, like, there's so many films like this too. Like another great example of this is also like on the other opposite spectrum. It's like even the Truman Show, where you watch that
Hmm.
movie and you're like, okay, it's a great story, but then throughout the film you realize that there are hints. Like even Jim Carrey is like even questioning his own sanity, and you start to notice this because his face
Yeah.
chart starts to change. He starts becoming more depressed. He starts becoming more paranoid. And you don't realize this until you watch it over again. You're like, hey, he's not the same guy he was an hour ago. He went from like cheery and happy to like, who the hell are you? Show yourself.
It is kind of a horror movie.
Yeah, in
When
a
you think about
way.
it. Yeah.
Breaking down that person, like you could see their mental break from the beginning all the way to the end.
And can you imagine that movie with anybody else? I mean, like Jim Carrey loves what he does. Like acting is his thing, and he loves. I think he loves that storyline, right? Like I think that storyline speaks to him, knowing like as an actor what he believes, right? As far as like the media and what's real, what's not real.
That was
Yeah.
made in the 90s. That was made
Mm-hmm.
before all of the stuff that we know now. And
Mm-hmm.
you think of it as just an idea, but if we really tap into that idea, we do live in that world where we're constantly bombarded by advertisements. We're constantly giving subliminal messages in some shape or form or fashion. And
Mm-hmm.
we are in the dome in some form or another. And
We are him.
damn, I
Yep.
just freak
I
the
know.
fuck out of a lot of people, right? It's all right.
But I mean, that's part of why we have story, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why we have stories and movies is because I mean, who else is going to explain those things? If you just told somebody like it's all a lie. This is all fake. Like you sound like a crazy conspiracy
Put on your tinfoil hat.
theorist, right?
Put
Like
on your tinfoil hat.
yeah. But you watch a movie like that, maybe you get it. Maybe the metaphor softens it. Maybe it makes you see it through like a little bit more nuance, you know. That's why we read dystopian novels. That's why we read 1984 still, and Animal Farm, and It Can't Happen Here, and the Handmaid's Tale, all of that. Because, you know, if we just said like, oh, these things are happening, it would be too real. It hits people too hard. And metaphor and story speak to people.
Handmaid's Tale, by the way, just saying, like, book compared to the TV series, did not do it justice. Like, the book was just.
I mean, I don't think so either, but
I'm just telling, like, if you just want to, like, just go out there and read Handmaid's Tale, like, I went through 3 chapters, I couldn't. I couldn't stomach it anymore. It's so graphic, even though it's just words.
And guess what? I read that in high school. Like we were assigned that book in high school, right? Because Margaret Atwood is a Canadian author, so we read that in a high school classroom, and it was just like I remember reading it then, and then I remember I had to read it again in university, and it was just like
it.
And then when you hear the things that are happening now, like that woman in I forget what state she's in, Georgia, one of the Carolinas or something, who's like still hooked up to life support because she has a baby inside her, even though it's not a viable feed, is like, OMG, what?
It's tapping into the parts of our brain that we don't ever want to think about. You know, the ideas and possibilities of realities that if they have existed, you know, great example of.
Well, that's okay. We'll just ban it. It's a banned book, so. It's like fine. We don't have to think about it.
By the way, I had a hard time getting 1984. I got a copy from Barnes & Nobles. I got mine in 2021. Okay? And what happened was they canceled publication. So whatever they had left was just from overstock. And I paid $48 US.
Pardon?
$48 US.
Is it a paperback too?
It's a hard copy.
What? Okay.
But because they banned it. Because the book was banned. So it has basically.
You get firewalled when you search online for like a PDF? Oh boy.
I've gotten in trouble even on ChatGPT talking about 1984.
What? Oh boy.
The thing about Orwellian thinking is this. He wasn't wrong. He was a century off in the type of mindset of like his ideas, but I mean the idea of the watchful eye looking through screens. You know, like this computer.
I mean, Animal Farm could not be more relevant. I mean, Napoleon as, you know, the dictator who doesn't like anybody who has all these squealer minions that speak for him and follow him without blinking an eye. I mean, hello.
Especially how they use the analogy of where pigs are very smart creatures. And how even though it's an
and that education is key.
There you go. And
I love the poorly uneducated, or poorly educated, right? That quote he said.
Then our U.S. government went ahead and made an Animal Farm cartoon and then decided to use it as political propaganda, which was genius for communism.
Oh my God. What a world we live in to make stories, huh?
Exactly. It's like we keep going. We keep shoving out the shit like it's a laundromat. Hopefully it comes out clean. We don't know. Hopefully. Keep our fingers crossed. I wanted to ask you, I know you have a podcast. I know you do some writing. Where can these wonderful people find your stuff?
Holy moly. Well, probably the best place I would go to the podcast because I talk about everything I do there. So that's spookyscholars.com. And you'll see how you can get into the podcast. You can see how you can join us in the community if you have horror movies that you don't want to watch alone and you need to talk to other people about them.
You got a Patreon page.
All of that is there. Yeah, you can get into our Patreon group there. We meet a few different times a month. We have a book club, so we read only spooky books together. We have a banned book club, so we read all of those books that you need to learn things from. And then we have our general meeting is every last Wednesday. So we meet and just talk about all of the topics from the podcast or whatever movies are out that we want to talk about and get off our chest. But we really talk about and focus on things like that we learn from podcasts, like we've been talking about. Like, you know, once I watch this horror movie, what am I supposed to learn from this, or what am I supposed to be thinking about from this? What is the substance making me think about that's true in my culture? Because that's what horror does, right? It's reflecting our cultural anxieties and just things that are happening that we need to think more deeply about, that maybe we just go on the news and say, oh, that happened. Well, you know, that's why metaphor and story is so important, because it makes us think more deeply. So we talk about those issues together.
And I think a great point to bring out is just because you got Jack Nicholson's son, can't fix Smile 2. But anyway, I'm sorry. Like, I just no. Like, I think he's very talented. No, you can't fix something that's already broken with Jack Nicholson's son. Which, by the way, he eerily looks like his father, which is kind of freaky. I don't know. Maybe Jack Nicholson is actually doing some science experiments in his basement.
It's called genetics, dude. It's supposed to happen. That's not a conspiracy. That's
Jack Nicholson. He's weird.
Genetics are real. Genetics are real.
Screw science.
So when is your big move happening?
Hopefully.
When do we watch for the adventure?
December. I don't know where my
wow.
It's amazing. This recording studio has changed a lot in the past couple of years. It's gone from me being into a little cubicle, you know, to a basement, to a little square in a living room, and then to being a gay man back in the closet. So, hey.
Oh no.
It's a little closet. I got a lot of space in here.
That's all you need. I mean, I in the first few episodes I experimented with in my closet, because they're like, go in your closet. There's lots of, you know, good sound in there. And it wasn't.
And the sound actually is pretty good in here. You know, you get a nice octave. You get a nice tone.
That's all you need. So hopefully you'll get that in Colorado. I don't see why not.
So, you know, and again, I think something for all of us is, even if you know you want to be the most successful podcaster, most successful creator in the world, and like that's your dream, and you want to live in Beverly Hills, I think for me the best way is to try to find something I'm passionate and get that as my financial stability, and use this as an outlet, as to be able to just connect, create, and be able to share. You know, see different perspectives, learn new ideas. I mean, hell, I think we learn a lot of perspectives today, especially with how movies are being made. We need phone numbers, okay? After every movie, giant-ass phone number.
We need phone numbers.
Hey, 1-800, I don't know, something. Don't give me podcast links. I need phone numbers.
That's $1 million idea, I think.
We should make it.
I think Gen Z might demand it. I mean, they're all about, you know, being more authentic and connected to people. I think things might turn that direction.
I think that one thing we've learned in the past couple of years is that we crave more than ever is just interaction. You know, being able to be around people is so...
And prove that they're not bots. Like, I think malls are coming back because people want to see you in person.
Haven't been
Yes.
replaced. When I do get replaced,
Well, how would you really know? And what is human? I mean, is it really
the aliens?
Not programmed? We're getting off track. Okay.
Well, what I'm gonna do, by the way, is I have a Substack anyway that I put out. I'll put a link to your Patreon so people can.
Great. Or you can always link my Substack too. We could share each other's Substacks. So my Substack is Horror Helpline. I talk about political headlines from the week and what horror movies kind of match with them.
It's utterly genius. It's like, oh my god, how many ways can we slice reality? Bam! Horror film, right at you.
So my last one, we were talking about when Trump was called the taco. So I said, well, when it's not that kind of Taco Tuesday, what horror movie should you watch? So I talked about a lot of different characters that are famous for chickening out in different scenarios in horror movies. So yeah, just bringing it all together.
Well, let me tell you, people, you got a lot of things to experience, and if you want to get into the horror sector, that's something.
I will hold your hand. I will hold your slimy hand.
Listen, I gotta say, honestly, Ash, thank you so much for coming on, spending the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Just, just getting through the knitting.
It's been a fun conversation. Yeah, it was a fun hang. I can't wait till you're a little closer, too. That'll be fun. We should do it again. Once you're in Colorado, let me see a bit different backdrop.
We
That
should.
sounds good.
Oh my god, different experience. My elevation levels might make me a little higher. Ooh. We'll see.
I think that's a good experiment. I'm in.
Well, anyway, thank you so much. To anybody out there that want to check out more of the pod, find us at Lost in the Groove Pod, everywhere and anywhere you can find podcasts. So with that, motherfuckers, catch you. Peace out.